We're incredibly excited to be working with Timothy Taylor's throughout the Ashes. They're a proudly independent Yorkshire brewery that's been brewing proper cask ale since 1858. Their flagship beer, The Landlord, is a real classic and a personal favourite. It's a multi-award-winning beer and it's loved by brewers and drinkers alike. Hello and welcome to the Wisden Cricket Weekly podcast. The wait is over. It is finally Ashes week. Josh Hazlewood is out of the first test match. What does this mean for Australia's chances? And who is Brendan Doggett, his likely replacement? And will England field Will Jacks after his impressive performance for the England Lions against England at Lilac Hill over the weekend? There is also one of South Africa's very best test match victories ever. They defended 124 against India at Kolkata, giving Temba Bavuma an all-time captaincy world record. I'm Yaz Rana, and with me today are Phil Walker and Joe Harmon McGowan, the original podcast trio, going back many, many years now.
Oh, and we predate you as well. We did loads.
I'm aware of that as well.
We predate podcasts, I think, actually.
We do, yeah.
Before we get to Mark Butcher and kick off our final Ashes preview chat, Phil, that is an amazing win for South Africa. No team has defended a score lower than 124 in 21 years.
It was a beauty. I didn't see it live, but I caught... in fact, I caught real-time highlights. I put it on yesterday afternoon, on Sunday afternoon, so an hour or so after it happened. I knew what the score was. Yeah. But we had some people over, and they didn't. So it was on in the background, and we were making lunch, and obviously it wasn't the central part of our afternoon, but it was there. And it was glorious to see. And, you know, two cricketers who I've got a personal connection to Harmer, who I've met and interviewed a few times, and Bavuma, I just think is a giant of the game. He's a titan of the game, and you won't find the more dignified and classy man with integrity, but also a lot of cricketing class. Not just now as a leader, and his record is outstanding, in fact, record-breaking, but as a sort of perpetually underrated batsman as well over the years. And that knock again is interesting, actually. 55 not out, slow heartbeat knock, 4 fours, only 3 of them off the where he intended them to go. And there was, because I was watching it the evening before, and the mood was, well, go out and have a hit because the pitch is a disaster, and so if you can throw the bat at 20 odd or whatever, you might actually change the dynamic of the game. Well, he went the other way, and it showed that was actually perhaps the smartest way to try and play. And you know, there are messages there for other Test match teams and other Test match batters around the world, how to negotiate filthy tracks. And so I couldn't have been happier for him, really. The knock of the game, a player who is really, in the last year and a half, become a different level, really, as a batter. And Harmer is it's a really good story. It's a good story for obviously for himself and for his country, but for the game itself, I think, really, you know, a peripatetic kind of cricketer. He's been around the blocks and obviously was almost done with South African cricket when he joined Essex, and then re-emerged, but at arm's length, back into the side as a second spinner behind Maharaj. He had a chastening test match in England 3 years ago now, something like 2.5, 3 years ago at Old Trafford, when he got smashed a little bit. And I think that dented his confidence a bit. He's had a slightly quieter couple of years with Essex as people have tried to work out how to attack him rather than just sit on him. And he's had 1 or 2 shoulder injury issues as well. But to come out, take 8 for 50 odd across the 2 innings and to bowl them to that win was absolutely glorious to watch, really. And just finally, Bavuma, he's so cool. The catch that he takes to get rid of Axar.
As much as the runs, because at that there was only 30 needed or so,
and he'd gone
Axar decided that was the time to go and was middling them, and he made that catch over his shoulder look extremely easy, but that could have been the game right there. Yeah, he's rock solid.
Yeah, and again, similar reaction to the Test Champo final when he doesn't show any emotion at all, Temba, until the final moment when the game is won, and then he goes off the hook, which is a great way of doing it as a skipper, to keep everything sort of enclosed, not allowing any sort of. With weakness comes emotion and vice versa, or a little bit, because it shows that you're a little bit uptight, perhaps. Kept everything under wraps, everything completely controlled, took the catch, didn't react. And then when the final wicket went down, everyone's off the hook. It was great to see.
Something our Indian viewers will not like me saying. I think one of the best sounds in cricket is when the Indian crowd is really up for it and really behind their team after a passage of play that's going their way, and then a wicket falls.
There's no more deafening silence.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. And live at the grounds, it's extraordinary.
It is amazing.
Well. The first thing I look for with an overseas test match anywhere in the world is how many people are in the ground. And it was packed. Not heaving, but it was good numbers throughout the 3 days, which is, okay, look, this is Kolkata. So it's almost like the spiritual home of Indian cricket in many respects. Don't come at me.
Just on people who didn't follow the game, it's worth reiterating just how far ahead India were at various points in the game. So India were 75 for 1 in response to South Africa's first innings total of 159. South Africa were effectively 45 for 6 at one point in their second innings before that Bavuma innings. And that catch, by the way, for Bavuma to get rid of Axar was quite special. Before we get back to South Africa, Joe, India have lost 4 of their last 6 home test matches. It's pretty dramatic change. They were unbeatable at home almost literally for a decade.
It's been a terrible year for them. So only 1 series win from their last 5. Well, this is a 2-test series, so we know India can't come back to win it. That'll be 1 win in 5, which was against a poor West Indies side who are in perpetual crisis. You look at the resources, the personnel that India have got. They've got the test team, obviously just talking about the test team, has to be one of the most underperforming sports teams in the world. To have that record and to have this home advantage, which, we can argue this, is it an advantage? Are they losing their advantage by their strategies? Is really pretty poor. And Gambhir's comments after the game, I don't know if he's deliberately doing a kind of Mourinho thing where he tries to absorb the pressure himself, or whether it's just his personality, but it doesn't seem to have much longevity to me. Obviously, the white ball record is going to protect him for a while, but if they don't get to a World Test Championship final, again, surely he has to go. I mean, that's got to be the bare minimum. And when he came out and said afterwards that the batter should have played better, played some poor shots, that is true. But I would be, if I was an Indian batter served up that wicket, I would feel peeved that the coach comes out and puts the criticism on me afterwards. Again, I don't think that is suggesting he'll be in this role for a particularly long time.
He also said something in the post-match press conference that was just factually untrue. He said that most of the wickets fell to seam. That's not true. 12 of the 18 wickets to fall for India fell to spin. Yeah. Why is it 18, not 20? Shubman Gill was retired hurt in the first innings with neck pain and didn't bat in the second. Phil, finally on this test match, you talked about Bavuma earlier, but watching this game, I was wondering, is he the most underrated test cricketer or cricketer full stop in the world at the moment? His record with the bat over a really long time is brilliant. He averages 50 over 4 years. That average rises to 55 as captain. He's got a better record when South Africa is struggling than well set. And as captain, he's got to 10 wins from 11 games. The 11th game was a draw. No test captain has ever got to 10 wins quicker than him.
And even when he was first given the leadership role, there were questions around that as well. And, infamously, he was not involved in the SA20, the starting point of that, despite the fact that he's a good white ball player. He's a very good 50 over white ball player. He doesn't perhaps have the brute strength of a very good 20 over white ball player. Nonetheless, you still think he would be part of the scene.
So he didn't get picked, right?
Which
was kind of humiliating at the time.
Yeah, and that was kind of extraordinary. But he's been perpetually undervalued since he first emerged into that team, and there are certain subliminal reasons for it. The fact that he is small of stature plays a part, for sure. And the fact that he's black plays a part as well. Because there was always that murmur around cricketers who would come into the side of colour that they were there for statistical reasons as much as talent reasons. And he came into that team for that England series, whenever it was, 2017, I think, when Stokes hit the 258 and whatnot. And he made 100 in that game, but from number 6. And that was his first notable score for South Africa. But even that innings, and I was there for that, and it was brilliant to watch. And it was a great moment, a kind of coming out moment for many people in the ground. His family were there, early coaches from the Langer township where he'd grown up. Were all there, and it was front page news for obvious reasons, for obvious symbolic reasons. But even within that, and they made 700 for 7 or something, and the 100 came in the context of that. And I think Stokes actually got stuck into him in that game. And Stokes, in fairness, gets stuck into everybody in that, whoever he bowls to. Everyone's rubbish, just call it Stokes. But he went after him and bounced him a couple of times and gave him a bit of chat. And that perception of Bavuma dogged him for years, I think. It resulted, I think, in people underestimating his quality as a cricketer, because there were slightly questionable reasons behind his selection, and it's obviously been borne out that they were unfair. But that's part of the challenge for cricketers from South Africa of colour, that they've had to overcome that lazy perception, as well as all the innate challenges to actually becoming a half-decent Test match player.
And you have to take into the account the context of South African cricket during that period as well. There were not very many South African batters making runs for a long period of time. That was a struggling side. It was very difficult to... And actually, his best performances came as backs-to-the-walls performances, but that often didn't get them a result.
Yeah.
The genius of his captaincy is that he's managed to turn a team who often were in comfortable positions and managed to throw it away into a team that now doesn't know when they're beaten. The World Test Championship final being an obvious example. They had no right to win that game, really, given the position Australia were in. And, you can trace that directly to Bavuma's attitude himself and the way he bats and the runs he scored. He's, in terms of, you can talk about whether he's underrated as a batter, but I don't think there's a team that represents their captain quite as well. Like England are trying to do that through Stokes and do on their day, but Bavuma's really become a real figurehead, and he's obviously got a coach alongside him in Conrad who has allowed him to be himself, to express himself. They implicitly trust each other, which I think has always been an issue in recent years of South African cricket as well. The head coach, the captaincy, the leadership has not been all as one, which is why he made the very controversial move to get rid of Elgar at the time, which seemed odd. I was very surprised at the time, but it's proven to be a stroke of genius, really.
Yeah, and again, just on that, it's a remarkable, almost sleight of hand on Bavuma's part to have unified this team that was a bit rudderless before him and had had that really tough year, especially in Test cricket, sending the C team to New Zealand. But if you look as well at the leaders, the figureheads of their Test team in particular, essentially from the readmission back in 92, like real hard bastards, and I say that respectfully, admiringly, but real hard bastards. Kepler Wessels is as hard as they come. Gnarly. Graham Smith, we all know about Graham Smith. Sean Pollock, tough kind of character. Dean Elgar was briefly in charge. Again, you don't get as gnarly and nuggety a cricketer as him these days. And Bavuma's come in there and almost thrown a kind of velvet glove over them, but somehow managed to pull this very tough, like square-jawed, sons of the soil kind of earthy cricket team that is quite tough to cohere around at times, and it comes from different parts of South African life as well, and that's not always been easy, as anyone who's followed it will know. And he's pulled it off. And he has bigger, richer, more powerful, more sort of overtly sexy cricketers under his charge. Markram and Janssen and Rabada. These are all they're very rich IPL cricketers. They're high-end cricketers, but they're charismatic cricketers. And then you have this lad who's 5'5", from a township outside Cape Town. He's pulled the whole thing together. It's beautiful, really.
It is a beautiful story. Next up, Mark Butcher. Butch, let's start with the South Africa win at Eden Gardens. It's Temba Bavuma's 10th win in 11 Test matches as South Africa skipper, the fastest captain ever to get to 10 Test match victories. It's India's 4th home defeat in 6, having lost 5 in 11 years leading up to the 2024 Hyderabad Test. After the game, Gautam Gambhir, the India head coach, says this is exactly the sort of pitch that we want. Can you understand the logic there? Because of the 4 defeats in 6, at least 3 of them have been on pitches like this that have been very, very high turning.
I mean, I honestly don't understand it. India have come an incredibly long way in a very short space of time on all parameters. The attitude around sort of fitness, the amount of fast bowling resources they have, obviously the financial side of things, et cetera, et cetera. They're leading the way on every parameter you can think of. There's one mental block that's left, and if they get over it, then look out, everybody forever. And that is this idea that when you have home advantage, but also when you have magnificent batting lineup, which they've had for the last 6, 7, 8 years, half of whom got ruined by pitches like this. When you have fast bowling resources coming out of your ears, when you have arguably the best sort of spin bowling variety in the world, you do not need to play opposition on pitches that give them an equal chance.
Do you think pitches like these are levelers?
Yeah, absolutely they are. Because put it this way, the most nervous any professional cricket team ever gets, and I remember this vividly from my time as a player, you turn up at a NatWest knockout game against Scotland or whatever it might be on a green sort of soft, horrible looking club pitch, and that's when you think, oh, hang on a second, we could be in trouble here, because that style of game very much levels the playing field to the team that doesn't have the same amount of skill, and I see that entirely with the way that India seem to insist on going about playing their cricket at home at the moment. You have all of the things in your favour in terms of the brilliant batting. As I say, you can pick any number of fast bowlers. You've got Bumrah, who's the best in the world. Fast bowlers did an incredible job away from home in England, and spin bowlers who are the envy of the rest of the planet. And yet, you level up the playing field to the extent that a 50 by Temba Bavuma in the 3rd innings of the game is enough to win a match. That's completely insane. And so, my for what it's worth, and nobody would listen, I wouldn't have thought. But my advice would be, you play on pitches that have got a little bit of bounce and carry and that break up in a natural way over the course of a game, and your skill will be too much for pretty much everybody else when you're playing at home. Why you would need to sort of roll the dice and gamble on something where you could lose the toss and end up batting last on the rest of it is completely beyond me, baffles me, and has done for at least probably the last 3 or 4 years.
The example I give is Rishabh Pant's innings. So Rishabh Pant, when he comes in, he got a bit of criticism from Indian fans about how he wasn't able to attack, and actually, why wasn't he playing his natural game? Well, watching it, you felt like he just couldn't play his natural game because balls were spitting out the rough, fizzing past his left ear. Harmer was brilliant, 8 for 51 across the 2 innings. But if you've got a pitch that doesn't allow Rishabh Pant to be Rishabh Pant, that massively reduces your advantage.
It does. And listen, without sort of narrowing it down to this one Test match, it's happened over a long, long period of time where, somebody as great as Kohli, his numbers at home fell off a cliff from around about 22 onwards, I think it was, when it was that Test match that England won where Joe Root got the double 100, I think. And from that moment on, all the pitches seemed to rag from ball one. And then you have a scenario whereby India aren't picking, are leaving out half their seam bowling attack that only play away from home, and you've got 4 spinners playing, all those kinds of things. It's just completely unnecessary when you are as blessed in terms of talent and skill right across the board as India are. So look, it's baffling to me. I think opposition quite like it because you always feel as though you've got a chance. Either with the flip of the coin. One guy plays a brilliant innings. But, England have not done particularly well in India. Well, they've done terribly in India, but that Ollie Pope makes an incredible 190 and England win, and set the ball rolling for potentially an upset in the series. You always give, if the opposition isn't as skilled as you give them a chance if you create conditions which can become a lottery. India have done it a lot. And what was it? They lost the 3 test matches against New Zealand, didn't they? They've now lost the 4th. And you couldn't say that on any of those occasions they've been beaten by a man-for-man better team than them all. But the conditions have certainly helped the opposition for sure.
Right, the Ashes are finally here. So we thought we'd kick off properly with a bit of sparkling. Who knows if England will be...
early for celebrations, but there we go.
That's okay. That's all good.
This is just for Hazlewood, not
well, who knows if England will be celebrating victory in 6 weeks' time. But either way, we're celebrating the start of the series. Now, with Naked Wines, one of the coolest things about them is you actually get to know the winemakers behind your bottle. These are real independent winemakers from all over the globe. You can literally see their stories, their ratings, everything. And because Naked Wines works directly with those winemakers, you get great wine for a much better price. So if you want to give it a go, head to nakedwines.co.uk/Wisden for an 80 quid voucher, which gets you 12 top-rated wines for just £64.99 delivery included. It's a subscription with 0 tie-ins and super easy to pause or cancel at any time. And there's even a $100 voucher for our Aussie listeners too. Links to all that in the description. But we've just celebrated a bit cheekily.
That's a good little refresher, isn't it? Nice and light.
It is good. We've just cheekily celebrated the absence of Josh Hazlewood in the first test match. How big an opportunity is it for England, Australia, potentially going into that first game with 2 debutants, Jake Weatherald up top and Brendan Doggett, more on him later in the bowling attack?
It doesn't get any bigger an opportunity, really. Cummins missing was a shock, not a shock, but was certainly encouragement for England. But to have both he and Hazlewood missing from that first test match is just a massive opportunity. So, look, let's throw a little ice bath on everything before we get started. England haven't won a test match in Australia since 10-11. Australia have only lost, was it 2 in the last 4 years?
Yeah, so since
2 test matches, that is,
yeah.
since the last home or their last home Ashes. So they are very, very difficult to break down in one test, let alone over the course of 5. But as we've said on multiple occasions in the lead up to this, England have a bowling lineup that is very capable of taking 20 wickets, no matter which way you decide to shake it up. And with pitches that might aid the fast bowlers in the first couple of test matches, it's an incredible opportunity to get off to a flyer and to put Australia under an enormous amount of pressure after the first 2 games. So optimism is there for sure, but there needs to be some cold, stark reality behind it as well. But I don't think England have had a better chance for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it statistically, you can be quite downbeat from an English point of view very quickly. Australia don't lose many games at home, so 2 test matches they've lost at home in the last 3 years. For England to win the series, they need to win more than 2 test matches, more likely than not. England's record pretty much since the start of the 23 Ashes is 50-50. The only series they won in that time are New Zealand away, Sri Lanka at home, West Indies at home. So they need to do better than they have been doing in the hardest tour going. But are there enough things to give you a bit of optimism in both that the attack England have managed to get together, but also actually Australia, that record might just a little bit flatter them. They had a difficult series in West Indies with the bat. They win it 3-0, but they didn't get a score over 310. Lost the WTC final. And even in games they have won, they have potentially not been as dominant as they have been in the past.
Yeah, without any question. Batting lineup-wise, the likelihood is, although this could change, with Hazlewood being out of the team, they might decide to play both all-rounders. I'd still be surprised if we don't see Weatherald make his debut and Labuschagne come in at number 3. But even so, Khawaja is rumours are that he's a shadow of his former self. You've got a debutant opening the batting with him. Labuschagne's been in terrific nick, and then you've got Labuschagne Smith head in that three in the middle there. If 2 out of the 3 of those have big series, then it's going to be hard work for England. And then, Green at 6, which I think is definitely the best position for him in the side and offering a bit of cover with the bowling. Carey has proven himself to be just a fantastic cricketer, properly dogged, but properly sort of Ian Healy throwback type player coming in at 7 for them, putting out fires when required. And then, their first choice bowling attack is, it gets in, if you're doing a combined 11, it's all of them, isn't it?
And you love them. You love doing combined 11s.
I love doing those. Yeah, you made me do 2 before we started.
But also,
it's amazing. I'm in such a good mood.
But one of the things I think is quite interesting around Australia is I think at times those of us in England jump onto the fact that Australia are debuting players and think, what an opportunity this is for England. Well, you rewind 4 years, they gave a debut to a bloke called Scott Boland, and 2 tests before that, Michael Nisha and Jai Richardson come in, and they do really well. Yep. Australia tends to produce guys who are test match ready, and the competition to be the next cab off the rank for Australia, in the bowling department at least, is so fierce. Even though we've never seen Brendan Doggett before, you'd wager that he's probably a test match ready. He's going to be good,
yeah, for sure, absolutely, absolutely. But you've lost 600 test match wickets or something with Cummins and Hazlewood being out of it. So if that doesn't give you cause for a little bit of celebration, then I don't know what does. They've. What was it? The 2 games, they've only had 2 matches where Hazlewood and Cummins haven't played together, and they won them both comfortably. They spanked the West Indies was one, and I can't remember the other one.
It was England at Adelaide 4 years ago.
Yeah, at Adelaide 4 years ago. So of course, with every bit of yay, there's a little bit of ooh.
But I guess that illustrates how rare it is, right?
It is also very rare that they don't play, but also England have not put out or been capable of putting out the bowling attack with the wicket-taking capability in Australian conditions that they have at their disposal this time. So all of these things are, are very much cause for optimism.
We're 3 days out from the first Test match, which means we're probably fewer than 24 hours away from England naming their side. We are probably closer to knowing what they're going to do. In the warm-up game against the England Lions, Ollie Pope was selected about 3, scores 100 and gets a 50 across the 2 innings. With the ball, though, intriguingly, England go with an all-seam attack. And then for the England Lions, their leading run scorer in the first innings was Will Jacks, who scored a run ball 83. He also took a couple of wickets in the game as well, including one beauty to bowl Joe Root through the gate. What do you think England are going to do from a team selection point of view? There's a slight concern over Mark Wood over his hamstring, felt hamstring tightness. A scan has subsequently cleared him, but he hasn't played a full game of cricket since February, so that might be a risk.
Well, I'd already had the thought that that both Bethel and Pope would play. Pope at 3, Bethel at 7 or 8, wherever you want to put Smith. But of course, I'd completely forgotten that Will Jacks was out there as cover, as all-round cover. Even though we did quite a big thing on why he was selected and why that was quite a shrewd idea. So it would not surprise me at all if Will Jacks plays and bats at 8. Off spinner. We've spoken about sort of left-arm spinners being quite ineffectual in Australia before. Part of the reason why England wanted Shoaib Bashir for all of this time was for this assignment, I guess. And so Jacks kind of fits that bill. And, his style of batting, I've watched him play quite a bit in the SA20 playing at Centurion on quick bouncy pitches, and he tends to do reasonably well on there. So England might see that as a way of bolstering the batting lineup and giving themselves a spin bowling option when spin is unlikely to play a massive part in it. Whether that remains the case as we go through the series, as I've said, we get to sort of Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, it might go back to a more traditional sort of lineup. But I think in these first 2 Test matches, and particularly in this first one at Perth, that might be the way they're going.
On paper, that's a formidable looking batting lineup. If you've got Stokes at 6, Jamie Smith at 7, Will Jacks at 8. Yep. If it is Jacks at 8, who are your 3 seamers alongside Stokes?
Well, I think the worry around Wood is not worth, again, given the resources that England have, is not worth taking the risk in the first Test match. I really don't. And so my 3 quicks to go along with Stokes, who took 6 for in the warm-up game, would be Archer and Atkinson with a new ball. Very tough on Bryden Cass. And Josh Tongue as the sort of, as your mopper-upper. I mean,
How important do you think that would be?
I think
that
is,
people aren't talking about him that much.
I played 10 tests in Australia, and sometimes getting the top order out wasn't that difficult, but getting out the last 5 was unbelievably difficult. As the Kookaburra goes soft and the rest of it. So having somebody who is a bona fide rabbit hunter is absolutely the key. And look, with Stokes, Archer, and Atkinson, yes, Tongue can be expensive, but then so can Mark Wood if you're looking at a similar sort of role. But you should have enough skill there with the other 3 in order to make up for any sort of profligacy that Tongue might offer up when he gets a spell. But I think if England get themselves where they get a sniff of, they got them 5 down for not very many, and you've got that guy on your side, then you're in business.
It was absolutely pivotal in the India series. You go back to Headingley, there were periods where you thought India were plain sailing in the game, and Tongue comes on and just ends an innings in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And he did it more than once in that series. He then did it in that pivotal game in the county championship at the Oval when Surrey were chasing whatever it was. And you just feel as though there is something about his action, something about his pace. He gets a little bit of late in movement to the right-handers, and he just mops up, and that is gold dust in Australia.
Can I throw another potential team composition at you? England went in with an all-seam attack in this game against the England Lions. Is there a world?
Although Lilac Hill is unbelievably flat.
Yes?
Yes.
So completely
unbelievably
different. So
flat.
nothing that we can really read in from how that game went for next week?
No.
Cool. But either way, I think there's a chance that they do go in with an all-seam attack, and that's their way to get Wood in, is that if you have 5 seamers, if you're not sure about Wood's fitness, you're fine.
I think in a game that pretty much everybody is expecting not to go 5 days, that you don't need 5. But what you will need is 30, 40 from each of your 7, 8, 9, if you can get them. So the runs will be of an absolute premium. So I wouldn't waste a spot in an 11 in a game that is unlikely to go the distance on 5 seamers. 4's plenty.
Got a couple of questions on the England batters. As always with these things, quite often pre-series chat centres around the players you're not sure will play, but there's not been that much chat around the guys who definitely will play. So Lucas asks, intrigued to hear a deeper dive into our batting, i.e. could this be the series that Brook moves to the next level? Can Doggett score 400 runs? How will Smith go? How will Crawley go? I've not heard anything yet. And Ben asks, do the podcast faithful believe this England top 7 have the skill and patience to succeed down there? There's a very interesting...
Patience is an interesting word.
No, it's an interesting word, but also there was an interesting interview done with Scott Boland overnight. He spoke to the English press, and he was put to him about how much more difficult it is hitting sixes in Australia versus hitting sixes in England. He said, well, in England it's a 65 metre hit. In Australia it can be an 85 metre hit, and we know that these guys love hitting sixes. Brook, he's only been playing Test cricket for a couple of years. He's in England's top 7 6-hitters ever. Jamie Smith's been playing Test cricket for 5 minutes, and he's in England's top 15. They like hitting sixes, and that is a harder thing to do in Australia.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, I guess the reason why there hasn't been a massive amount of discussion about England's batting lineup is that it's pretty much written in the stars that that's what it is going to be, and was going to be from the back end of the summer. And so there really there's no intrigue in terms of selection other than the Pope Bethel thing, and that's now been put to bed. I mean, Bethel had his opportunity in the New Zealand series, I think, to make a really huge case for himself, and didn't take it. So Pope starts at 3, and the rest is the rest. Brook, Stokes. Brook is going to get tested in 2 ways. One with a short ball, long boundaries. They'll look to try and take him on. Remember, Headingley in the first innings where Bumrah got him out off the no ball, didn't he, at the back end of whatever it was, day 1 or day 2, I can't remember. And absolutely right. The sort of fine leg deep backward square leg boundaries are enormous. So if you don't get it, you're gone. So they'll test him out there, and then they'll test, if they don't get him out that way, they'll test him out outside off stump. They'll just hang it out there length and say, come on then, come to us, which he's proven to be not skittish, but just kind of gets a little bit bored at people not bowling it where he can hit it.
It's the Sri Lanka series
Yes.
in 2024. Sri Lanka actually had quite a lot of success at just bowling, not even fifth stump, way outside off stump,
seventh.
boundary protection, and they're like, go on then, what you can do.
What are you going to do? And so, and they will have no qualms about doing that. Australia will not get sucked into, as we saw in the 23 Ashes at home, they went completely against their natural instinct of sort of attacking cricket, because they knew that that's what England were going to do. So they tried everything they could to frustrate them out of that being successful. It didn't work entirely, but it worked enough. Worked enough for them to retain the Ashes, put it that way. So they'll have no problem with doing something like that to somebody like Harry Brook. Huge series for Zach Crawley. We know he's going to play. We've known he was going to play for the last 5 years. How long has it been? It's not been as long as that, but he's going to play, right? And this is the series, I suppose, that McCullum and Stokes have basically been waiting for him. This is kind of it. Regardless of what's gone on form-wise with him and the ups and downs of Zach Crawley's 50-odd Test matches, their feeling has been since probably since the last Ashes series away from home, actually, where he played a couple of really great knocks at the back end. Well, one. Yes, one. It was at Sydney, wasn't it?
On the flattest pitch of the series.
That's right. And their thinking is that his game is entirely suited to Australian conditions, and therefore this is the one. So there you go. This is it.
Finally, you don't do predictions. I'm just intrigued to hear, how excited are you for this series? I was listening back to the preview podcast we did for the Ashes 4 years ago, and we were remarkably unenthusiastic going into that series. We didn't quite say it's going to be a 4 or 5-0, but you could tell by our levels of energy.
Did you actually listen back to that? Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I mean, that's kind of, predictions to me are they're nonsense, and I've said it before around the sort of like the faux patriotism that goes into announcing a 5-0 one way or the other. But I don't know. I really do not know. I haven't got a clue. Obviously, my heart, I want England to win. It'd be absolutely magnificent. I don't know if they're going to be able to, but I do think that they've got one heck of a chance. That's sport, isn't it? The beauty of sport is that if you go into any sort of serious contest, big contest, and you are not 100% sure either way, if you haven't got a pretty damn good idea that this is how it's going to turn out and this team is going to come out on top, there's your perfect sort of storm of staying up all night and watching the game, because you genuinely believe that anything can happen. And I think that's absolutely the case. We might be disavowed of that thinking after the first 2 games, but as things stand right at this very moment in time, I think that this could be the most exciting Ashes series we've had down under since goodness knows whatever end. And I use the word exciting because I genuinely think that could be the case. I think back to, so those of you old enough as I am to remember the 86-87 Ashes, that wasn't exciting. England kind of battered Australia in that one. It was kind of long and drawn out, but England ended up being too good. The 10-11 series was anything but exciting. It was great fun on day one at Melbourne, but it wasn't exciting.
82-83 was the last time it was good.
It was good, right. So
but it is amazing actually looking at how few good series there have been in Australia, but also like actually we talk about how England's recent record's appalling in Australia. If you go back to 1945, it's a really long time ago.
Yeah.
If you take out the 15-year period between 71 and 86, England have won 2 Ashes series in Australia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hutton in 54-5 and Strauss in 10-11. That's it. So it's
didn't Illingworth win in 70?
No,
that's what you're talking about. There's your gap. 71.
They have three wins in short succession in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah,
that's it.
So it's not a trail littered with glory, is it?
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. But I genuinely think, and I genuinely have hope. And put it this way, England are anything if not entertaining to watch, no matter what happens. So look, let's let's set those alarm clocks and stay positive about what we hope will be an absolute cracker.
Yeah, 2:30 a.m. start on Friday morning for those in the UK. The Lord's ticket ballot is closing very soon, and if you want the chance to be at the home of cricket next summer, now is the time to do so. This year is properly easy. It's open to enter. You don't need to put in any card details. Just pick the days and tickets that you want, and then you're in the ballot. 3 massive test matches, including the first ever women's test at Lord's against India next summer. There's also a men's ODI against India as well. Loads of people are excited. Over 100,000 people have entered already. So if you want your shot, make sure you enter before the ballot closes at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, November the 17th. Head to the link in our show notes and get your name in the ballot now. Joe, there's no Josh Hazlewood. How big is this?
I have to say, it did put a little bit of a spring in my step. I do think this is really big, and I think in terms of bowling alone, his absence is just as significant as Pat Cummins, really. But then there's always, when you're having these discussions, there's always the flip side. And then I thought, Brendan Doggett comes in alongside Scott Bowden, 2 bowlers that this England side could potentially underestimate and play in a way that they wouldn't have played against Hazlewood or Cummins in Australia on home soil. Is it going to see them be too complacent, find themselves 55 on the morning of day 1 at Perth because they played shots they wouldn't have played against the big guys? But let's leave that aside. Let's just look at it in terms of the actual ability in this Australian side, and it is no doubt a significantly weaker team. Hazlewood has been phenomenal. His stats over the last couple of years are ridiculous. He's probably, for all this talk of Australia's dad's army, a team on decline, most of that is complete nonsense unless you look at perhaps Khawaja. Hazlewood is arguably in the form of his life.
He averages 14 over the last 2 years. And if you watch any of the white ball stuff between India and Australia last month, Hazlewood looked as good as he has ever looked.
Yeah. So this is a huge, huge opportunity for England to go 1-0 up in the series. It also makes it, if they go 1-0 down, it makes it all the more demoralising because they're 1-0 down and Australia haven't even had Hazlewood and Cummins. So, England need to win this first test.
Well, I suppose if you go back to the England-India series that we had this summer.
Bumrah bowled in 2 test matches and England won them both.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How much does this change things, do you think, Phil?
A bit, or a lot, or not at all. I can't anymore discuss this stuff until it happens. Clearly, look, okay, let me frame it this way. We asked for our predictions in the magazine, which will no doubt go online, and no doubt we'll get all kinds of pelters on our way, and probably more directed at me than anyone else.
So more generally, we asked 12 people for their predictions.
From both England and Australia.
And Adja gave a prediction from the Indian perspective. We had Dan Gallen from South Africa, and Phil, you're one of 2 who picked England to win.
Yeah, I'm surprised you brought that up, Joe. I didn't see that coming. Yeah,
just for the context, right?
And the other one also wasn't. Andrew Miller was the other to predict an England win. And if you actually read his explanation, he doesn't really predict an England win. He just predicts it'll be a good series, and he says he hates predictions, and then says at the end England will win.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I begin my first sentence by saying that I think England will win 3-2 or 3-1.
Give us 3-1.
But by the end of that first sentence, I've decided that they're probably going to lose by a whitewash. So that sums up my judgment. But the point I was going to make is that you said about Hazlewood in your piece before there was any news about a tweaked hamstring, that he is due the landmark series that his talent deserves. He's never been at the top of the card before. He's always been one of the key figures on the undercard, but he's so good that it might be his time. And I'd said a similar thing to you over a drink a few weeks ago as well, before I'd read your thing. And I totally agree with you that if he'd been fully fit, then he'd be, I think, the most consistently threatening bowler for England to have to deal with.
I think especially
now, at the very least, he's only going to play 4 games.
I think for me, the reason part of it was how well he's bowled in the last 2 years, and I don't think England fans are aware of how well he's done in the last 2 years.
But the white ball stuff for last month, man, unplayable.
It genuinely has looked unplayable. But the other bit of that is I thought that his importance would be exaggerated by just how I think how important the top threes of both sides go. And if you've got one opening bowler bowling as well as he has been recently, that could be series defining. And at the moment, it's just one test match, and 1 out of 4 might not mean that much. But I think him missing the first test, it gives England an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, in cold, hard reality, you've got two of their 3 best seamers not playing, and a ground where the huge discrepancy in spin quality between Lyon, the champion, and one of England's couple of pretenders will probably be relatively limited at Perth, probably more than anywhere else, alongside the day-night game at Brisbane. But you would feel like that discrepancy will really be a kind of gaping gap at certain places, but not necessarily at Perth. So, yeah, it does feel like a particularly big first test of a series. And under this particular regime, as they call it, they have gone well in first games, haven't they?
Joe, 4 years ago, 99% of England fans had never heard of Scott Boland, so worth saying that before we get onto this.
Yeah.
But who is Brendan Doggett, and why is he at the front of the queue?
So when I was speaking to Jason Gillespie for a piece in the magazine in the lead up to the series, he really likes Doggett. He's at South Australia, which was Gillespie's side before he went to Pakistan. That was not a great career move, was it? In hindsight. But yeah, he's an interesting... he hasn't got the usual backstory for an Aussie fast bowler. He got picked out of club cricket in his 20s, wasn't anywhere near the Australian pathways. I was trying to think of a kind of England comparison. I think like Toby Rowland-Jones is, in terms of career projection, wasn't part of like the England Academy under 19s, has been much more of a late bloomer and is going to be debuting at 31. But his record over the last 3 seasons since going to South Australia from Queensland has been exceptional. 89 wickets at 20 in that time. So he's become basically a player who's done such good stuff in domestic cricket in the Sheffield Shield that he's forced his way in, even though there have been bowlers with kind of bigger reputations who he's moved past in the queue. Tallish. He's quick enough without being express. He's got height. He nips it off the seam. He will be dangerous. Undoubtedly, he will be dangerous. England will know much less about him than Josh Hazlewood. And I think, as I said, there is the risk of a bit of complacency and trying to attack the new guy who hasn't played Test cricket before. Also, interestingly, he'll be the third Indigenous man to play Test cricket for Australia after Gillespie and Boland. I didn't know that until reading the story as well. I think, again, similar to Gillespie, this was something that he kind of explored more in his later years. I don't think he was necessarily aware of it or wasn't a kind of big part of his identity. But that's another interesting aspect to his story as well. Like
he's a really good character. I saw him give an interview last year, actually at the Big Bash randomly, and he'd taken a couple of wickets and whatnot, and they had a chat to him during the half-time bit. And he's a really good character in the way that Jake Weatherald actually comes across really well as well. And 2 blokes who have clearly been round the traps 10 years and more as professional jobbing pros out there. And it seems like that gives them the components to take it all in their stride, and they both come across very well, actually. So any notion that they're going to be a little bit spooked by it all, rabbit in the headlight stuff, it's not come across in any of the conversations that they've had with the media so far. I rate Doggett, right? I saw some highlights of when he took 11 for in the final of the Sheffield Shield, and he basically won them that game, first time in a long time. And when he went to Durham, that was part of the reason why I was interested in Durham to win the championship. They got relegated. So there's my prediction, folks.
Well, you got 3 games with the Kookaburra and then got injured and had to go home, didn't you?
Yeah, indeed, yeah. But no, look...
He's also not come from that. He's been part of the Australian squad for, the best part of a year now. He's been in squads, but just not been able to get in the 11. So he's not come from nowhere. He will be familiar with the setup. He'll be familiar with his teammates. But yeah, those Aussie fast bowlers that you hear about when they're in their early 20s and then just wait for them to come into the Test team, he's kind of the opposite of that, and in a way more interesting for it. And as a similar story to Scott Boland.
I was just going to say it's very, very similar story to Scott Boland, and his work
slightly different bowler, a little bit slower, slightly not quite as high release point either.
No,
I
I was going to say I just think he looks like a taller Chris Wokes. and I know people say, well, Chris Wokes doesn't have a very good record in Australia. He's a taller and probably slightly quicker Chris Wokes. And,
but Boland on his day is a more kind of 86, 87 kind of bowler. I think he's slightly more early 80s
that's
kind of seamer.
Watching the highlights of him taking 11 in the Shield, I think his natural shape is away from the right-hander, but he's got that ability that a lot of the best modern day seamers have of just getting the ball to nip back in as well. So he gets a lot of wickets, LBW, which is similar to Boland, I guess. And yeah, just worth reiterating, to be the next cab off the rank as an Australian seamer, you have to be really good. And he has done basically everything you can do over the last year. So you reference his overall record of the last 3 years. The performance that got him from Australia being interested to getting him in squads was he took 6 for 15 against India A around about this time last year. It was a strong India A side. Does really well in the Shield and then takes 11 in the Shield final. Since that 6 for 15, he's basically been in every Australia group that's been more than 12 or 13. He was actually in an Australia squad all the way back in 2018 after Sandpapergate, but didn't play. So they've been interested in him in a long time.
Also, conversely, of the argument that Zach Crawley is worth pursuing because he's so good against the top class Australian quicks like Hazlewood, like Cummins, is Crawley now less likely to succeed? Now he's up against Boland and Doggett, two guys who are more similar to the kind of county seamers who get Crawley out for fun week in, week out when he's playing for Kent.
We'll get to it in the next part of the show, but I do think a little bit too much has been said about Crawley's 77 at Sydney last time round, when that was one of 6 innings he played. And his overall record that series was averaging 27. Anyway.
We're clutching now, aren't we?
Wow. Before we move on, 2 things to plug. One, Joe, the digital magazine that is out. This is an extraordinary offer, but it's 140 pages for free.
It's mad, really. Whose idea was this, Phil? Might have been yours. Mine? Can't remember. Anyway, it was a great idea. It is, 140 pages of everything you could want to read about the Ashes. We've got a good chunk of new stuff, obviously, on the upcoming series. But we've also got a lot of our best Ashes content from the years, featuring so many writers. Top of my head, Rob Smythe, Jonathan Liu, Felix White,
Tom Holland,
Jeff Lemon,
Tim Key, me.
We're in there, yeah.
It's a monster.
And it's, as Yaz says, available for free. You'll put the link in the description, I presume.
Yep.
So all you have to do is simply download an app, Pocket Mags app, and it takes 30 seconds, and then just put in your name and address or whatever, your email address, and that's it. And then there it is, and you can read it across the course of the whole series, or indeed across the course of the rest of your life, because it's enormous, and it is free. It's a joke, really. Please do it yourself, and also tell all your mates. So you can't say fairer than this, really.
Couple of other plugs. Join us on the Patreon. We had a live show for the Patreon audience last Wednesday at a West London pub with Darren Goff and Butch. Very good fun, but more importantly, get involved in the Patreon. You get a daily episode, full daily episode after each day of play during the Ashes. And I think, Phil, we were talking about this during the week. The best bit is the Discord community. There was a message at about 6 p.m. yesterday evening from someone saying, look at what they're showing on TNT Sport 4 right now. It's the full highlights of the 86-87 Ashes. So if you like messages like that, if you like receiving messages like that, get on the Patreon.
And if you like watching hour-long highlights from Brisbane 1986-87, you'll enjoy reading 4,000 words in said free magazine of me on Botham's 138 from that very Test match.
And if you like, things from us around the Ashes, there's an event next Monday. The next Nightwatchman Quiz on Monday the 24th of November at the Jolly Gardeners pub near the Oval.
Featuring starting with a panel show, not a panel show.
It's a panel show.
Phil and I are talking about the Ashes, just in case you haven't got enough here. And I just learned this morning we've got a very, very special guest joining us as well. Which is you, Yaz.
That's very much TBC.
Classic cracker. Classic.
All right, so
very
Jans,
much
you may or may not be there.
TBC, yeah. But
Pop
yeah.
along for a drink, though, won't you?
Well,
Not even committing to that.
well, if it goes to day 5, that doesn't work that well, or that doesn't work that well for the night shifts, and also you guys are both doing the weekly pod that could be immediately after that. So I'm not sure how that's going to work, but we'll work it out. But yeah, that's at 6:30.
So it's at 6:30. Yaz isn't going to be there, but Joe
he
will.
might be there.
I might be
He
there.
might
I
be
might
there.
be there. I might be there.
Tantalising.
Also, before we move on, you might remember that I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago now, a listener called Rory wrote in asking his mates to be his best men via the podcast. We have a response from one of his mates, Frank, who says, "We would love to be Rory's best men. He is an adorable, kind, thoughtful man, and it would be an honour. We love you, Phil. You completely failed your audition for MC by getting Rory and Josh's names mixed up. You could have been a genuine contender, but it wasn't to be this time. However, with Rory's blessing, we would like to invite the 3 of you to the wedding. The dress code is full whites padded up with helmets." Thanks again.
Who's the 3 here?
He did in a previous email stipulate it was me, Phil, and Ben.
So I'm not invited.
So you're not currently invited.
I'm busy anyway.
He says, "Thanks again for making this surely the best men proposal ever." Phil, you don't think we're actually invited?
I think dress code is full whites, padded up with helmets is the giveaway. But
That could be the only jokey part of it. The rest of it could be legitimate.
yeah, but it follows a very similar style to his first email, when he actually said, "Sorry about this, but we're not really friends with this guy. But he's a deluded lunatic, and if anything, we're trying to make a distance from ourselves from
Written
him."
so well that it was actually almost believable.
But then he made a point that his party piece is kind of pulling down his trousers and then saying, "Who needs the BBL?" Or something like that, which was a little bit far fetched. And so that was the giveaway in the first email. I think the full whites is the giveaway in this one. But, look, more news as we get it, folks. I know you're all on tenterhooks waiting to hear whether we are actually going to go to the wedding.
Live show from the wedding. That's where all this is heading, right?
Would you go, Phil?
Would I go?
Yeah, if you're available on whatever the
It
date
depends
is.
at what part of southeast London it is. No, look, evening gig, go along for a couple of hours.
I think that's Dave.
I can't see the full works. But part of the actual wedding guest lists, all the rest of it.
I reckon you'd give
I can't quite see that happening.
more than anyone I know. You'd give really good speeches for people you've never met before. I reckon you're capable of that.
I'm definitely in the business for that. I just got to get the geezer's name right.
Joe, England played England Lions over the last week. Ollie Pope was in the runs, almost lock at 3 now. He scored 100 and hit a 90 odd. Runs for Crawley, Duckett and Stokes as well. Stokes took a 6-for in the first innings, but almost all of them were caught deep fine leg. Jofra Archer taking 3 catches there. But I guess most encouraging is him bowling a full day in the heat.
And Bethel got runs in the second innings. Quite
Bethel
a nice
got
70 odd, right?
Yeah,
So
Bethel got runs in the
useful
second
if
innings.
anyone goes down.
Yeah. Do you think now that Will Jacks will be in the 11? He had a really, really good game. 80 off as many balls in the first innings of the game. And then with the ball, he was expensive, sure, but he got a couple of wickets and he was no more expensive than Joe Root or Shoaib Bashir. And he took one particularly nice wicket bowling Joe Root through the gate.
Yeah. It is tempting. It's definitely tempting. He showed what he can do from the lower order. He'd be at 8 in this side if he was to be picked. And his bowling is kind of serviceable enough to do a job. So it is tempting. I wouldn't go that way. I think if they really thought Will Jacks was going to start this Ashes series, then he should have been involved in the test setup over the last 3 years. He hasn't played since that Pakistan tour of 2022. It's only 2 years ago he wasn't even given a central contract, one of 29 contracts. So it doesn't feel like he's really been part of their thoughts. I think he's still a sound selection for the squad, depending on the way things go. But I wouldn't be thrusting him into the side for Perth off the back of a kind of chummy knockabout on a flat one at Lilac Hill. That it feels like the sort of thing that England might have done in previous years out of desperation. I don't think they're at this point yet. Great option to have in the locker, but I wouldn't go that way. I think they were all building up to play the 5 quicks, four quicks plus Stokes. I would still go that way for the first test at Perth. I think that is the best. I think that gets the best use out of Stokes as well. I think then Stokes can be, a genuine change seamer who can be a high impact, point of difference, partnership breaker, but he doesn't bowl all day and probably put himself out for the rest of the series. So I would, whilst tempted, at this point resist the option of Jacks and just go with the 5 quicks.
Phil, what's your 8 to 11?
Oh, I didn't do that though. Should I do that before Phil does his?
By all means.
So I would go Carse, Atkinson, Archer, Tongue. So Wood, I'd love to get Wood in there for the first test, but I think given his lack of preparation, you probably just hold him back for Brisbane. And then Matt Potts is the other one to sit out, isn't he? Yeah.
Exactly the same.
That's boring, isn't it?
Yeah.
But what about Jacks? Were you tempted? Because it's quite... That's because even though I wouldn't pick him, if 2:30 in the morning and Jacks is on the team sheet, I'm excited by that if it does come to pass, but I just don't think it's the sensible way to go.
I think Carse is a useful number 8.5, 9, and I think Atkinson is a very, very good number 9. So I think those two in that slot compensate for Jax's abilities at number 8 with the bat. Or certainly it limits the loss of having Jacks down there as a sort of lower order all-rounder. And I think the way you're taking 20 wickets is not with Will Jacks' off-spin at Perth. So I go in with those same 4 as you. But we don't know how fit or otherwise Mark Wood is. Yeah. And it could be that they were ultra cautious with him. But even if they were, and he's running in hard in the nets and whatnot, he's still only bowled 8 overs in a competitive game in a long time. So seems like a big ask.
But if
get him into that test match.
If he is fitter than that would suggest in terms of the number of overs he bowled, there is an argument with Cummins and Hazlewood out to go all guns blazing first test, go Wood and Archer and try and get yourselves. Do everything you can to get one up in the series. But as you say, it all depends on the state of Wood's fitness. And he has shown before that he can come into games with no overs under his belt and be extraordinary. So maybe that's what England are banking on. We don't know, but I think on balance, he's held back for later on.
Yeah, and I think just about. I want Carse in there for his batting, what he brings to a team with his energy. I think he bowls a lot of unfashionable overs that England need, and I think he bowled better over the summer than his figures suggest as well.
So in that
and he batted well. He made a really good 50 at Lords, which was actually in the context of that game really important.
Atkinson at 8, Carse at 9 is again, it's not quite Jacks at 8, one of those two at 9, but that's still a lot of batting depth.
It's a lot better than it's been on previous Ashes tours.
And I have a weakness for Josh Tongue. I think he's potentially quite an unusual outlier of a fast bowler, and I think in a 5-man attack, you can afford him to have his off days and his off sessions for the moments when he does get it right. So, yeah, I think he edges it for the tearaway slot ahead of Wood at the moment. But
and we saying Atkinson,
I guess they have the 2-day. Sorry, Joe. They have the 2-day game between first and second tests. Perhaps they can see how Wood goes in that. A few more intense overs under his belt, and then have a look at him for the day-nighter, where of course. Likely to be very useful indeed. But yeah, my team's the same as yours. What about yours?
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe. You were
no, I was just going to say, if it is that 4, are we saying is Atkinson taking the new ball with Archer? That's the way they went in the warm-up?
Yeah, I think so. I think Atkinson has taken the new ball in most of his test appearances. I guess, and obviously it's impossible to comment not knowing exactly the state of Mark Wood's fitness, but having 5 seamers would tempt me to play Wood, and that if he breaks down, it doesn't really matter that much to the side. Because I'd be hugely tempted to just unleash everything at them. I love the idea of Jacks at 8, but I sort of want to see all of the seamers, so I want to pick all the seamers as well. I think Carse is really interesting in that out of all the new guys who are touring. Archer's touring Australia for the first time as well, but of Atkinson, Carse and Tongue, the newish seamers to the setup, Carse is the one who I think will really enjoy playing a series in Australia, and I think that there is something about that is worth having in the side from day one. Yeah. Atkinson, I think, deserves a shot to have the new ball in the first test match, and I think, again, Tongue or Wood for me. either way. Tongue's not as quick as Wood, but he's almost more awkward to face because of the height, because of the angle. And as Butch says, he gets tail enders out for fun, and that has been a big problem for England, not just in the last few years, but historically in Australia. England have got themselves in good positions without being able to finish Australia off. So I think that's hugely valuable.
But just on Tongue, he was useful against the tail enders against India, but he gets good players out. And it's a misnomer to think that he just cleans up with foolish ones at good pace to get rid of bunnies.
He also gets good players out when he's not bowling particularly well. There are still enough good balls in there.
Yeah.
I mean, he must be horrible to face.
Indeed.
In that sense.
Indeed. But, I did a list of players that he's got out. And, I mean, he got Smith and Warner out twice in his debut Ashes Test match. 5 wickets across the 2 innings there. But he got Jadeja out 4 times this summer just gone. He got Pant out twice, and he got Jaiswal out twice as well. He also got Gill out once. So there's some good wickets in that. He got 17 or 18, I think, against India, top wickets for England. There was some good scalps within there.
I guess we're all saying what we would do. How surprised would you be if they do go with Jacks?
I wouldn't be hugely surprised.
I wouldn't either.
I think the most surprising thing for me out of the 3 possible options would be Bashir playing. Even though I think a month ago a lot of people just presumed that they've been so loyal to Bashir, he's fit again, that they will play him. But I thought it was quite telling that he wasn't in the side for this England versus England Lions game, and his figures were very, very similar to Will Jacks's. So I don't quite get why they would be playing Bashir.
I don't think they'll play. I agree. I'd be more surprised if Bashir plays than if Jacks plays.
Obviously, the pitch itself. I saw some quotes last week from the curator saying that, he wants a juicy pitch. He wants a pitch with life, similar to the pitch that they had last time out against India, when a load of wickets fell on the first day and then it flattened out a little bit. But also the weather as well. If it's going to be late 30s degrees, then that does change the story, because it's going to be baking down on a hard surface anyway. It's going to be drying out whatever grass is on there and eliminating that after a day or two. And, of course, being in those furnace-like conditions. So then that perhaps...
I thought I'd read the forecast is that it won't be anywhere near that hot.
It's early-ish in their summer.
Yeah.
So that plays a part as well. If it's relatively mild conditions and there's a pitch with life, certainly for the first 2 days, then to me, it's all steam ahead.
The other thing with Jacks as well, I mean, not only have England not used him, but Surrey haven't really been able to use him and I know county cricket doesn't really matter much these days. For his batting, broadly irrelevant. What he does in white ball cricket, he could kind of just transfer over to his role at number 8. But as a part-time bowler who's only really developed his bowling in recent years, surely he would need to have played more games than 5 red ball fixtures across the last 2 calendar years to then be England's primary spinner in an Ashes Test. It just feels like if they do pick him, it shows that their preparations really were quite a way off.
Yeah, I suppose the thing around that is that with Jacks being an IPL regular now and an England white ball regular, that is the combination that really stops you playing championship cricket. So they would have needed to withdraw him from an England squad to allow him to play maybe just 1 or 2 additional championship games.
But that would have been a sensible thing to do, wouldn't it? In September, at the back end of the campaign, not in terms of batting. Again, I know they don't really take that into account, but just in terms of get some overs under his belt. If this was likely to be.
Yeah, but at the same time, they'll say that they're regenerating the 50 over side, and there's a T20 World Cup around the corner, and Jacks was not a shoo-in in either setup recently. So to take him out of that would damage his prospects of playing in certainly the T20 World Cup that's just around the corner. Yeah. But what I would say about England is there's a lot of attention around their more Hollywood picks, so Shoaib Bashir based on a tweet, etc. But I think one thing they do deserve credit for is the hiding in plain sight selections. So players who are just there, no one's really talking about them, but they end up being ready-made Test cricketers. So the most obvious one to me is Ben Duckett, who was good in county cricket for a very long time. Obviously played for England way back when, but had been a very good county cricketer for a long time and wasn't at all involved in any England setup. The other one is Bryden Cast. His best year in county cricket was 2021 before the 21-22 Ashes. No one was talking about him. He played a couple of ODIs that year for England, but to be honest, was probably a ready-made Test bowler there and then. And, Will Jacks might be that because of his white ball commitments. He's not someone who's able to put up the numbers season after season. The last time he had a full county championship season, he's one of the best players in the country. When Surrey won the championship, the first time in 2022, really good year with the bat. He was their leading spinner as well. So I don't know. The more I think about it, Jacks being in the squad and potentially the 11 makes sense to me. And I think England look really imposing with Jacks at 8 as well. That excites me as well. On predictions, we mentioned them earlier. Joe, where are you at with expectations around England? I'm not going to ask for a hard series scoreline prediction, but more generally, your expectations around the series.
Well, for what it's worth, in the magazine feature we talked about, I went 3-2 Australia. But I think this England team are definitely good enough to win this series. I think when you line up the Australian side and the England side, I think there isn't a huge amount in it. I think in terms of talent, England possibly even edge it, but then you take into account Australian conditions and their record in Australia, which is still formidable, then I think it's very hard to say that England go in as favourites. That's not to say they can't go and win it. I think my concern for England is over the course of a 5-test series, can they play in a way that means they win that series? They haven't won a 5-test series under Stokes. Admittedly, there haven't been that many, but they drew at home with Australia and India, in part because they just couldn't see out a couple of moments that would have allowed them to win that series. I think they have to win at Perth. I do. I know that sounds like too cliched, but I don't feel the same way about Australia in that sense, particularly with Hazlewood being ruled out now. But some of the naysayers who still think it's 4-0, 5-0, I just can't see it. Like that would be such a catastrophic performance from this England team.
Might as well give up at that point.
Yeah, really. Yeah, absolutely. So I think it will be. I'm still leaning towards Australia, but I think it'll be a really, really close series, and I think it'll be a really good series, and that's almost as important, really, because we've all. I was going to say we've suffered. That's a little bit get out of violence. It's been not that bad, to be honest, but it's all been a bit disappointing because we always build up these Ashes series. Even in the back of our heads over the last 2 tours, we've probably known beforehand that England aren't good enough. But you look for this and that means that they could be. I don't feel like I'm doing that this time. I feel like there is plenty to get excited about. But then the flip side is this Australian side, they're not on the decline. We can pretend that they are. We can look at their ages, but they're just not really. So England are going to have to still go against the form book to win out there. But they could do it.
Phil, I want to think that England have a really good chance. But when I look at the numbers of Australia only losing 2 home test matches in the last 3 Australian summers, England's record since the start of the 23 Ashes is not far off, just 50-50 in terms of wins versus defeats. England's only 3 series wins in the last 2.5 years are New Zealand away, West Indies home, Sri Lanka at home. That makes me think that something quite dramatic has to change for England to win. Why are you optimistic that England have a better chance than that recent history suggests?
I think they'll win 2 test matches at least. All right. Being as objective as I can, I think they've shown under Stokes he's won 22 games in 36 games in charge. 22 wins from that. That win ratio is, as I say every week, the best of any England captain in history, with the exception of W.G. Grace. So that is remarkable. He's taken a mediocre cricket culture full of problems and limitations and turned it into something that can win against the best teams anywhere. The blot on it all is what happened in the 4 test matches after the win against India in India. They ballsed that one up. They should have at very least lost that series 3-2. And then you walk away from that thinking, okay, that's a fair result. I think the way that they play is such that they are going to beat the best teams from time to time. And they have shown that, they have shown that. They took 2 test matches off Australia, the best team in the world. They should have taken 3. They would have taken 3. I think if we're being cold about it, then that's a fair comment. Australia were a good few behind with 5 wickets down and 2 days to go, just to make England bat again and to avoid an innings defeat. And it rained for 2 days. That's just a fair summary of what that series was. And against the juggernaut that's India, they took 2 test matches off them this summer as well. They weren't the better team, by the way, but they took 2 test matches off them. They go to New Zealand, where unless you're Australia, you don't win series. No one wins in New Zealand. They went down there and they won 2-1. They should have won 3-0. In Pakistan, and yet somehow managed to lose that one, having hit 800 in that first test match or whatever it was. But the point is, wherever they go, they play kind of fight to the death cricket. And
but do they though? Because it's like, I look at the India series, and there are various points at which you can say,
perhaps the phrase is wrong.
I was thinking Edgbaston. Edgbaston, England had a chance. If you compare where England were when they started batting at Edgbaston in the final innings versus where India were at Old Trafford, India were in a worse position but dig themselves out of that hole. England don't. That is one of the many fine margins that define the series. And that, it could be something like that in the Ashes. And I think I completely agree with you. I think England have the ability to beat any team in the world wherever on their day. It's just there have been several moments in the last couple of years where they've had series in their grasp but haven't quite been able to turn really impressive performances that have been different to what they've done before into series wins, if that makes sense.
And part of that, my concern is that when they play well, they play at such a high intensity. It's necessary for the way they play to play at such a high intensity. Is that actually possible over 5 test matches in Australia? I mean, the schedule isn't too tough, and it's quite a slow start. There's gaps between Perth and Brisbane and Adelaide, isn't there? But still, that's why I think if you lose the first one, it becomes very, very difficult to fight back. I mean, Phil, what do you think over the course of a 5 test series? Can Stokes' team play in that Stokes kind of way?
I don't know if they'll necessarily have to, because...
Or more to the point, can they adapt and play in different ways at different times when they need to?
I think there's small suggestions that that they're trying to sober up a little bit.
Yeah.
Small suggestions. If you look at Lord's last summer, they scrapped it out over 110 overs to get to 340 odd, 50 odd. Crabby pitch, batted first, 40 for 2, and then played pretty gnarly cricket to get to that point. There are other examples here and there. The test match against South Africa, actually, a couple of years back, after they'd gone down in the first, and then they came back to win that series against the world champions. All right, you're at home, but they did it actually without chaotic baseball cricket, but actually rather more measured cricket. That was a couple of years back. So I don't think they're completely stupid.
No, I agree.
I think they know more about cricket than us, and they certainly know more about how to navigate the treacherous waters of international cricket than most people. And I think for all the bombast, I think there has to be a slight recalibration and a recognition that there are other ways to win games. The Edgbaston example that you use, and you can add the final test match in New Zealand as well to that, when they got beat by 400 runs or something mad, and the final analysis at Edgbaston wouldn't have been far off, right? 350 probably defeat in the end. I hear that, and I think when you're behind in a game, when you give up 600 on a flat one in the first place, as they did to Shubman Gill, and then you are behind in the game, it requires something dramatic regardless to get out of that problem. And I know that Butch, if he was sitting here, he'd be slapping me in the face for saying, well, they've got to try and bat 4 sessions. I don't think they did a massive amount wrong in that 4th innings, if you actually look at the dismissals on their own terms. There were 1 or 2 in there. But I don't think it was simply just, we're going to go and baseball ourselves to oblivion. They just got undone by a very good team, in my opinion. But if you're talking, when I use that probably ill-conceived phrase, what I mean is that you take, say, the Leeds game before that against India, where they're kind of behind in the game the whole time, and yet they go and win it by 5 wickets with an hour and a half to spare. on the final day. Because of the way that they play, they stretch and elasticate the bounds of what Test match cricket is. And teams are nervous as a consequence. They also, if they're really ruthless, they can smell blood, like Australia did, and they played on the weaknesses 2 years ago of this approach and the fallibilities that are sort of baked into it. They played on it really well. They were against England and behind in the game at Edgbaston, but they hung in there. And then Cummins managed to get it over the line at the end. But England were ahead in that game, basically from the first ball to the last half an hour, and they lost it. At Lords, there was a point at which the game was parity, and then England ballsed it up, and Australia played very clever cricket. They put 3 men back and bounced them and played on the egos. And that was, for me, the most lamentable Bazball performance of the whole tenure, personally. But then after that, they couldn't cope with them. And
possibly the trigger for a shift, I think, as well. I think that has been a maybe subtle but change in approach since then.
Yeah. So look, ultimately, I just think that there are too many match winners in the team to not find a couple of wins in 5, and I think that would happen against any team in the world in any conditions at the moment. I think they're a slightly more mature team than they were when they went to India that time. I mean, if you remember, they went to India with 2 lads who didn't play first-class cricket as their main bowling options. They won one, they should have won more. And their batters will look back at that series. They didn't have their best player there, by the way. He was not playing for compassionate reasons, or second best player. That's the series to hold up against the point that they're going to go there and win a couple. But I think that was 2 years ago on very different pitches with a very different team. They have a much better, more all-round team now than they did for that India tour. And I think they have a better seam attack now than they did for the Ashes 2 years ago as well.
Also on Stokes, I think we talk about his leadership and this being his team so much that we almost don't talk about him as a cricketer enough, which is kind of ridiculous given that he's possibly England's best ever. And through his captaincy tenure, I think he's playing better now than he has at any point. I think he's certainly bowling better than he has at any point that I can remember in that period. His batting was scratchy against India for a lot of the summer, but then obviously came good towards the end. Going to Australia with a fit Ben Stokes who can play a full role with bat and ball is something that England haven't had the luxury of before in Ashes tour. So that really shouldn't be underestimated as well. In amongst all the Stokesian leadership. Yeah. It's actually just what he does on the pitch as well.
The thing for me that gives me optimism, I'll caveat this with saying I still think Australia are more likely to win the series than not, is I think the combination of England's bowling attack versus this Australian batting unit, there is a very, very decent chance that England blow them away 2 or 3 times in a series. Australia,
that's what good quicks do. And you have individuals who have done that. Even though Australia are formidable at home, obviously, but Shamar Joseph had a day out and won a game against the head at Brisbane. Pakistan lost 3-0 2 years ago, but in a couple of the games, they were in the fight. And I forget the lad's name. He took 6 for 80 and then smashed runs. Thank you. And again, he had a day out. So I think England have got those bowlers. They have those bowlers individually and arguably, if we're being positive, collectively to do damage there. I don't think the 20 wickets thing is going to be that big a problem. Yeah. I think, can their good batters have good series? And can enough of their quicks stay fit? And if they do, then I think they'll win at least a couple of games. We might still go down 3-2. Might go down 5-0. No one knows. Please, can we play some cricket? But I'll be surprised objectively if they don't win 2 games.
And finally, Cricket 26 is out next week. To tell you all about it, Ben spoke to Mike Merron from Big Ant Studios to hear all about the game.
I'm delighted to be joined by Mike Merron, the development director of Big Ant Studios, whose latest cricket game, Cricket 26, is out this week on November 20th and available to pre-order now. Mike, this is your 8th or 9th cricket game, depending on exactly how you count it. That's a lot. There's a lot of games. How's it evolved over time? And just give us a flavour of what your role is in all that.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think the first time I started working on cricket games for Big Ant was 2010. So it's 15 years worth of cricket games. We've obviously when you count that up, that's one every couple of years. So we've kind of got pretty, well versed in making them now. Initially, when we started on Bradman, it was about delivering just a different flavour of game compared to every cricket game that had kind of come before. And then as we've gone through, we've kind of refined it and added licenses. Obviously added game modes, whether there be extra career modes and different stuff for adding to the mechanics, as well as now adding our what's known as pro team, which is kind of building an ultimate kind of cricket team, opening card packs and competing with other players. So yeah, it's kind of been a gradual evolution for those kind of 15 years.
Yeah, I remember that first game at the time, and it did feel like nothing that had come before, really. Because I mean, at the core, and for people who have not played any Big Ant cricket games before, is this kind of the mechanic around batting and bowling, which isn't just sort of like, picking a dot on the pitch and doing a timing bar. You'll probably just be able to describe it better than I can, but it's like using the joysticks to create batting and bowling as close as you can when it is just two joysticks, I guess.
Yeah, so that was the thing. Right back then, we wanted to kind of turn it on its head in terms of how people look at cricket games. So that all the games that kind of come before, as you say, you'd kind of put a pitch marker down somewhere on the pitch where the ball's going to bounce, and that's where you then worked out where you were going to bowl and where you were going to bat from. And generally, in reality, people look at the ball and want to follow the ball and where it's going. And so we effectively put the pitch marker on the ball, so that from there you could tell whether it was going to be a bouncer, whether it was going to be a Yorker, and the line as well that it was going. So you kind of then at least your eye was more on the ball than it was on a dot just in front of your feet. And that was kind of the first thing that we did with Bradman to kind of evolve the whole kind of, well, it was revolutionized really the cricket genre. And then as we've gone on, we've evolved that though, that that as much as, and I cannot play any other game mechanic other than that with the two joysticks every single time in the office. If anyone tries to play any other mode, which we've gradually introduced over time as we want to obviously make it as accessible as possible to people that again may have been used to those old ones. We brought in the ability to still put your pitch marker down and things like that, but still most people who are purists and know exactly how to play cricket, they go down the stick route and want to play with that. And everybody else who's doing the old system is just like, hang on a minute, you're just playing a kind of, an arcadey version of cricket rather than what cricket's really about.
No, we're definitely purists here on the Wisden podcast, so that's good. And as you say, you're constantly kind of tweaking and improving things, and a couple of bits that you've revamped this year, particularly the fielding, is that right? And then also the bowling actions. You've got just a lot more bowling actions that look like the bowlers that you'll have seen bowl on the TV and in the grounds and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. So we've, I think in the previous games, we had maybe 20 or so bowling actions for different players. We've now added an extra 40 for this game, so there'll be over 60 for Cricket 26, and that includes a number of the Ashes players. So being in Australia, as much as I'm an Englishman, I'm over here in Australia. I'll pick out there's Scott Boland and Nathan Lyon as a couple of the Aussies that we've done, and yeah, just adding a lot more of those kind of bowling actions that people kind of on the TV will recognise immediately as that player. We then fielding wise, I think a lot of people would agree, fielding's been our weak part in terms of how we've kind of gone about it over the last sort of 8 or 9 games, and it's gradually got better. It's had its moments where people have kind of liked it, and but there's always been issues, whether it be overthrows that people are not expecting to be overthrows, and we've really just thrown everything away in terms of how our systems work, and revamped the whole fielding system so that it's a lot more reliable. Its stumpings are a lot better. Everything about it is now up to the sort of standard that our batting and batting and bowling is. So it's a lot, it's a lot more refined in terms of how you can sort of deal with fielding around the ground. That means we've actually completely redone the whole throw mechanic as well. So when you field in the deep, you can choose to do airborne or piercing throws, and from that, there's an ability to then see, is that fielder capable of throwing at the stumps from that distance? And so you have a mechanic there to then determine, okay, shall I go for the stumps or should I go for safety and go for the wicketkeeper? And that may or may not cost you a run out, that extra bit of time to go back to the keeper. So there's a little bit more tactics in there in terms of, do I go direct to the stumps or do I not?
And just, I guess, talking about how the players look, I guess I was excited to hear you've got Bumrah's bowling action. Is that right?
Yeah,
With
Bumrah's
that
one of
sort
them.
of
Yeah.
the-
So there's a few more of the teams from the Indian T20 clubs. We've got, I think we've got all but one of the teams licensed now in the game. So yeah, all of those are kind of getting shared around as well in terms of actions. And then we've also added more into the batting side of things as well. So there's a few more batting styles that have been added. We've added extra shot types. So there's the ability to do punch shots. Push shots, I should say. So just allowing you to try and get those quick singles where the gaps are. So that's kind of been refined on the previous games. And just in terms of where you can hit the ball now has been tuned a lot more in terms of more control over if you want to get a square drive compared to a cover drive. Some of those were a little bit kind of not guesswork, but it was a little harder to choose that you wanted to get a cover drive over a square drive and vice versa sometimes. So those things have been improved in 26 as well.
Yeah, it must be such a challenge with the modern game when players are sort of inventing shots kind of every day to know which to include in a game. And if you've got one player who just plays as one type of shot, how do you include that and that kind of thing? But it sounds like it's as close as possible to the real thing this time, I guess.
Yeah, it's just giving the users as much opportunity to play cricket really as it should be. Obviously, we lean a lot on Test cricket in terms of the fact we're an Ashes license and come out when the Ashes is coming out, but also mindful that we have the 100, we have CPL, we have the BBL, PSL, a number of the Indian T20 teams. So all those kind of short format ones, we also have licenses for. So you do want to, support that, and people from a game point of view want to be able to jump in and do those quicker matches as well. So yeah, you want to have the kind of more exaggerated cricket shots, shall we say?
Talk to me about the Ashes then, because the game is not the other big bit of cricket this week. It's not just the release of Cricket 26, it is the start of the Ashes as well. And this game's got an expanded Ashes career mode, or Ashes mode, right? Where you can, it's not just playing in the test at Perth or at Melbourne. It gives you kind of the full touring experience. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, the previous games we've kind of put in, you play Australia versus England or England, Australia if it's over in the UK, and you just play the 5 tests, and you've got whoever was picked for the squad. That's who you do. You've got your 15 or 20, whoever the tour squad is. You can pick them, and that was it. You play your 5 tests, and you either win or lose. In this game, we've added training sessions, so you can go in and play net sessions, which then can change form of your players between tests. We've got press conferences that happen. So after a test, if you've got man of the match, or if you're the captain, you'll be playing things like that, and doing press conferences. So it's a little bit more about the Ashes experience than it is just about play 1 test match, play 2 test match, play 3. And invariably, and once 3 is done, then hopefully England have won.
It's not the way it's tended to go.
No, I know it's not, but we can but hope, can't we? Especially with me down here in Melbourne, it's like Boxing Day test. I hope that we've got a chance that we're going to win at that point. But anyway.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And if there are some long Ashes nights, I think that Cricket 26 is the perfect accompaniment. You get to lunch in England, have lost 5 in the morning session. You can play it how it should have played out, I guess.
Yeah.
So there's a few other features that look really interesting that we should talk about. So we've got a management career mode, and a Centurion multiplayer mode. Tell me about each of those and anything else you've got that's new.
Yeah, so management career is basically just it's an extension on what we've done with our career modes before. The previous ones were always you playing as yourself, effectively. You'd create yourself and you go in and you play a single player career going around kind of every facet of the game, whether it be club side all the way through to international, and you'd build yourself up. Management career is you're actually in charge of an entire team. So you deal with scouting. If you end up in charge of, say, 100 team, you deal with the draft and how that it takes part and bringing players into the teams. You can have multiple teams on the go at one time. So as long as they don't overlap, you can be, a BBL kind of franchise owner, is probably manager, whatever we want to call it, between the kind of December, January time, and then be 100 person when it's played in the August kind of window. So through an entire year, you can move around and try and win, the 100, try and win the BBL, eventually maybe manage England and try and win the Ashes. So all of those things are in there. And yeah, as I say, you deal with training schedule, scouting, everything to do with the team, picking the lineup, obviously, and who comes in, and then ultimately playing the game as well.
And then Centurion multiplayer mode, that's different, right?
Yeah, well, so Centurions are an addition to our Pro Team mode. So Pro Team, which was introduced in Cricket 24, is the basically the card pack opening side of things, where you go in and you can basically create what we call your pro team. So you open up a pack and you've got players there across all different leagues. So whether that be any of the Ashes squads, whether that be people from the BBL, people from CPL, and then they basically, you create a team and then play in different game modes. We've got within Pro Team on that, you've got what we call coach battles, where we at Big Ant will put up teams that everybody competes against to try and win rewards. You then have Test the Best, which is kind of like a ladder system. So you have to beat progressively harder teams to, again, get rewards and XPs and card packs that you can open that will then give you better players. And then the Centurion mode, which is a first for cricket, is up to 100 people, hence the reason why it's called Centurion, can then play together. And all it is the batting side of the game, and you play multiple rounds where you try to score as many runs as possible. And anybody that's at the top of the ladder, or sort of say anyone at the bottom of the ladder, each round we get rid of more and more people until there's an eventual winner. So it's a real kind of battle royale kind of a batting game, basically. So all of those kind of things, the pro team and all that together, is its own kind of kind of facet of the whole game. Some people buy the game just for that mode, in terms of what's available in the game. So we've got quite a wide range. People buy it just for career mode, or they buy it for the pro team, or just for the academy stuff, where they go in and create lots of things and share it with everybody else in the community. So there's multiple amount of different people that will buy the game for different reasons.
Yeah, amazing. So if you've never bought a cricket game before, definitely buy this one. And even if you have got Cricket 24, there is so much new in this one that makes it worthwhile. I mean, this might be the only way you get to see England win the Ashes this year. So.
No, come on now.
Well, great, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
That's all right.
And hope you enjoy the Ashes over there. We'll be up through the night, and I'm sure playing some Cricket 26 to get us through the worst bits of it.
Well, let's leave it there for today. Cheers, Joe. Cheers, Phil. We're just not far off, 48 hours away from the first ball of the series. We can't wait.
I've actually grown tired of it. Genuinely. I was excited about this 2 weeks ago. I'm so done in by it now.
You're going to be really excited on the morning before the game. I can guarantee it. Join us for the first daily immediately after the first day's play on our Patreon channel.